Have Monster Hunter World, which has been received incredibly well. Welcome back to Hubworld, the podcast about video games, pop culture, and unsolved mysteries.
Yes, that's exactly right, Carter. I'm your detective, Daniel Elliott, and this is my partner,
Carter Harrell.
And we're here to discuss some of the more strange and unusual in the realm of video games. Sometimes you might think to yourself, do humans eat Pokemon for meat? Have you ever considered,
I didn't know you were going straight into it. That caught me off guard. Okay, no, we're good. Haven't we all wanted that? By the way, I was going for a New York gangster from the 1920s, but
oh yeah,
I sound a little more like Peter Griffin.
Hey, welcome to Hubworld. We have our first celebrity guest, Peter Griffin. Hey, Peter, how are you today? Oh, man. Okay.
And we're back in.
Have you ever just considered why people are capturing all these Pokemon? Have you ever considered what they're doing when they're not using them to battle? Maybe after they've retired them after a career of fighting and getting stronger. Where do you think they go once they are gone off to pasture? You know what I mean?
It depends. One thing if you've got a Pikachu, but another if you've got a tasty Magikarp.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Nice. I would love a little...
throw it on a skillet.
I could eat a California roll with some Magikarp in there. That's all I'm saying.
Nice Taurus steak.
Yep. That's all I'm saying is, I've never once encountered a vegetarian in the Pokemon universe. Just saying, what could be done with them,
It might just be another unsolved mystery.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Maybe one day this will be solved. Here's looking at you, Ash. But anyways, continuing on in our theme of unsolved mysteries. Carter, has any...
All right, I've got another one for you,
all
Daniel.
Right.
You ever heard of a dame called Kirby?
I think I have. That cute pink little puffy ball.
No, when she walked into the room, she was a rounder dame. With legs for inches.
Just the way I like it.
Thing about this broad is, you let it get too close to your heart, she will literally swallow you whole.
That's quite the interesting conundrum here.
One thing went in, another one came out. Sometimes it was a star, and sometimes the dame stole your powers.
What you're telling me is this Kirby, if that is their real name, may walk into the office as one thing and then leave as another.
To be honest with you, when it comes down to what's really going on in there, I'd rather not see how the sausage gets made.
So what you're telling me is, you're not going to be the first doctor to perform an autopsy on a Kirby. That's what you're telling me there. You don't want to be seeing how those inner workings happen. You don't want to take a little ride through the digestive system of a Kirby.
That's why I didn't become a doctor. Became a private eye.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe it's best to leave that mystery unsolved. When we're talking about things that are unsolved, have you ever played the classic game Tetris?
Of course I have, since I was a little kid.
Yeah, you ever wondered where those blocks come from? Why are they just falling from the sky? What's above the screen? Why do we only see just a little bit of the Tetris world? What's going on in the Tetris universe? You know, why have we've never had a deep dive into Tetris lore? Why are they falling? Are they running towards us? Or are they running away from something else?
You know, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, screaming, cold sweats, thinking the same thing.
I just want to know, are Tetris safe? Is Tetris okay?
And more importantly, are we safe from Tetris?
Oh, I shudder. I shudder when I think too hard about this unsolved mystery.
You know, I got another one for you, Daniel.
Yeah, hit me up.
Going back to the old Pokemon. And the one thing I've always wondered, especially if I were a Pokemon, is what it's like living inside a Pokeball.
Yeah, you know, that's a very good point, Carter. No one knows what goes on inside that little Pokeball, you know? Is that a luxury? Is it, what's the difference between a regular ball and a master ball and an ultra ball and however many other balls there are these days?
Every time I'd call one back, I'd always wonder where it went. Maybe it's lounging in a luxury suite, roaring fireplace, thick smoke, and a fine scotch. Maybe they get transferred into theoretical data that gets stored in a computer as code until it's called upon to take physical form.
Carter, that is something I've not ever one time considered. That
one thing's for sure, I'd rather not see how the sausage gets made.
Here's another thought that I have. What if all Pokemon trainers are actually convicted felons of kidnapping? Is Pokeball a form of kidnapping? Actually, is the entire idea of hunting for Pokemon just an elaborate kidnapping scheme?
And the other thing is, the level of the crime depends on whether or not you eat the Pokemon afterwards.
Are we really about to blow this whole thing wide open? One thing's for sure is, this might be another mystery that goes unsolved. It's almost like there's too much mystery to go around in the Pokemon universe.
You know, speaking of Pokemon, you ever heard of a Pokemon called Diglett?
You know, is that the one that sticks up out of the ground and it looks like a weird ice cream sandwich in the face? Because if so, I have.
That's the one. Now, you've ever wondered what they look like underground?
You know, here is a mystery that brings me nightmares constantly.
No one ever knew much about the guy. Kept to himself for the most part. No one ever even knew what he looked like under the neck. But his secret was simple. He's a bodybuilder with pecs like boulders and abs for days.
Are you suggesting that the pecs of a Diglett are really just an onyx? Because if so, I may never recover from that image.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. That image surely is unexpected.
Oh, goodness gracious. Again, another unsolved mystery. Now, Carter, let me ask you a question. Are you familiar in the Mario universe with Bowser's children? The Koopalings,
Yeah, I know.
believe.
I know one or two of them.
You know, the game never poses the question, what about Mama Bowser? Where are those children from? Are they adopted? Are they natural? Is Bowser trying to commit infidelity with Peach?
How many kids has that guy got anyways?
Now here's what all I'm trying to say is, Bowser, it's okay if you are struggling with the idea of being a father. But what we all need to know is, where's the mom? Where's Mother Bowser? Is she called Mother Bowser? Is she called Bowsette? Is
You know,
Peach...
I've got one clue for you, Daniel.
Yes?
I would say that they might be adopted, but you've got to remember, baby Bowser looks exactly like Daddy.
Oh my goodness, Carter, have we discovered maybe the greatest conspiracy in all of Mario?
I think this one goes all the way to the top.
Is Bowser an elaborate cloning robot machine?
This might just be, or remain, an unsolved mystery.
Now, Carter, if we're going to stay in this Mario universe, I want you to think about the titular Mario.
Yes, of course.
Now you look at him and he seems like a regular average Joe, you know? The kind of guy that just puts 2 feet down on the ground and gets up and goes to work.
Puts on his pants the same as you and me, one overall at a time.
That's exactly right. But then, have you ever stopped to consider, what is Mario? For the longest time, we just figured he's a human. But let me present with you Exhibit A, New Donk City.
Ah, yes.
Those of you who might be disembodied listening ears in our detective office, hearing this wherever you are, and you're not familiar with New Donk City, just type it into your Google box and ask Alexa, you know,
Or Jeeves.
or our good detective friend Jeeves. New Donk City. And I need you to look at what the humans look like. And then I need you to look at Mario. Then I need you to look at the humans in New Donk City. And then back at Mario. Now, Mario clearly is not one of those. So again, I ask the question, what is Mario?
You know, Daniel, I think I might have another clue for you.
Oh, yes, is that right?
We found out recently that Mario's got 2 things that humans do have, and that's nipples.
You're 100% right.
But unfortunately, he's missing something else,
And what's that?
even more important,
Yes?
a belly button.
Oh my, oh no. It's Mario Kyle XY. You
Just
know,
might be.
this is actually, I feel like the room is spinning. I feel a rush of blood to the head. I think we may just have to leave this mystery unsolved.
You know, if we're talking about Mario, I've got one last mystery for you, Daniel.
All right,
And it's the mystery that started this whole idea, and that's a little man named Toad.
Oh yes, I'm familiar with the little mushroom man.
You know, we got to get to the bottom of whatever is under that big round noggin of his, and we need to get there fast.
You know, a lot of people have looked at him and said, "Hey, Toad, that's a nice looking mushroom hat that you're wearing on top of your bald head." But did you know
But then,
that Nintendo,
the big man at Nintendo says it ain't a hat, but his head.
yes, that's correct. This mystery has been solved. And that's the first part of our news section. Welcome back to Hubworld, the real podcast where it's just me, Daniel Elliott,
And the real Carter Harrell,
Yeah,
not from 1920s New York.
That's right, and that's where we talk about video games and pop culture and Nintendo breaking news, where they have officially announced that's just Toad's head. That mushroom, that's just his head.
Yeah, it's not easy to look at now.
No, you know, and like some people have pointed to back in the original Mario cartoon, there is a scene where Toad takes off the mushroom and he's just bald under there. So,
right,
you know, that this now creates an interesting line of questions about, well, what in fact is that thing on top of his head? Like, is it just a mushroom that is growing organically from bald head skin?
Right.
I don't know.
I was gonna say I was looking it up as well, and there's a number of pieces of evidence pointing to the opposite. I remember seeing one where, like, in some sports game, his mushroom was replaced with a helmet.
Yeah.
Some games Toad have hair coming out from underneath the mushroom.
Now, see, that's almost even more disturbing to me, thinking about Toad
It
with
is.
like hair curled underneath that mushroom.
Right. And I think there was one more thing where he said, like, I'll tip my hat to you, but neither of us wants to see that.
Oh, see? Come on.
Maybe it's like you're saying, maybe it's an organic mushroom that grows and then becomes detachable and then grows back.
See, there we go. Maybe just Toad is like the next generation of Chia Pet. And that's just
Right.
Yeah. It's been there all along, right in front of us.
Either way, I don't want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I don't either. But it's interesting that, like, I mean, we're not joking. Like, this part is no longer a joke. Like, Nintendo actually did make an official announcement that, like, that is just Toad's head. Along with a whole lot of other news that came along with it. They kind of just did like a big old news block. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. First is there is going to be a Mario CGI animated movie made by the same people that did the Minions and Despicable Me movies.
Right. And in case anyone, just so nobody gets their hopes up, this is not a CGI remake of the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie.
That's a really true but also very sad distinction, because that movie is actually great. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Yeah,
we should make Super Mario Bros. The movie, the game.
Oh,
and it's a game based off of the 1993 movie.
See, you know that licensed games are hot right now, and so what better property to license a video game off of than everyone's most favorite video game character? Yeah. So,
I'm not knocking this till I see it. You know, obviously the main thing is that Mario doesn't do a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what that's going to look like. I mean, he's said words in the past, and so I don't know if they're just going to give him a big old script or if it's going to be, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions coming into this whole thing, and that's the first one is that Mario's not. He's typically the strong silent type,
right?
Except for his like Yahoo and woohoo and
thanks
all
for
those
playing
things.
my game.
Yeah, like one sentence at a time kind of thing.
Right.
And so
we've talked in the past about Bowser's limitations with English as well.
Yeah. So I do have a lot of questions. My first question is if he is going to talk at all, then like I hope to God they get Charles Martinet, like the guy who's been doing Mario as long as Mario has had a voice.
Surely they will, because he's still going.
Yeah, he's still going, and he's great. I saw him. He came to Raleigh SuperCon, and that was a really, really awesome hour-long kind of thing. And he's such a cool person, at least like what we got to see of him. And so, yeah, I really do hope that they have him, regardless of how much or little Mario talks.
Right.
I hope it's Charles Martinet. Also, because Charles Martinet does like a lot of the voices. I mean,
he does a whole bunch of stuff.
Because one of my other questions is like, what's the supporting cast going to be in this thing? Like,
that's the thing is I was trying to think: are there other characters that Peach talks?
Yeah, Peach talks.
I was wondering if there were enough talking supporting characters that they could pull a movie off where Mario didn't say anything and it was just everyone else. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could work.
Yep.
But we'll see. But yeah, I would imagine like Peach, Toad, Luigi, Bowser, definitely. I really want Wario and Waluigi to be in it, but we'll see. Yeah. So again, Charles Martinet does a lot of this. So yeah, I'm interested. I think I definitely want to see it. I will see it, and if we see it, we will review it on Hubworld. So yeah, but I'm not sure. I don't think they've announced a date. I just think that it's on the way. At least not that I remember seeing.
No, I don't think I saw anything anyways.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's something to look forward to. And then also Nintendo announced that they are going to begin their paid online service in September.
Yes, finally.
Just for the Switch specifically. This doesn't affect any of the other consoles.
Right.
And so right now you can play online for free, and that basically amounts to Mario Kart and Doom and 2K and Splatoon 2, ARMS. There's not a ton, I think, of online multiplayer games on the Switch right now as it is.
Yeah, and it's pretty cheap, right?
Yeah, so there's going to be like different pricing tiers. You can either do $3.99 a month, $7.99 for 3 months, or $19.99 for a year. So
not bad.
Not bad at all. And then that's basically going to entail. So they already have the Nintendo Switch Online app that you can download on your phone. Which I think you can do voice chat through. I'm not super sure. And then that's also how they're handling online lobbies at the moment. But then this kind of murky thing that they've talked a little bit about is what they're calling the classic game selection and eShop deals. This is subscribers will have ongoing access to a compilation of classic games with added online play, such as Super Mario Bros. 3, Balloon Fight, Dr. Mario, and will receive special offers that may include discounts on select digital games and content. So,
All right.
I'm reading that straight from the FAQs of the Nintendo Switch online service on Nintendo's website. And when they have classic game selection, there's an asterisk that says product name subject to change. I think it's subject to change to Virtual Console.
Oh, okay.
Because that's classic game selection.
Right.
Every other Nintendo console since the Wii has had, Virtual Console, which is...
Yeah, and it did not take this long.
No, definitely not. And I'm guessing that it's taking so long if they're really trying to be serious about including adding online play and leaderboards to some of these old games. Like, I'd imagine that could take a long time to figure out how to do that for generations of video games.
But I mean, Nintendo does a lot of that stuff slowly anyways. Like, they're still not like Netflix for some weird reason.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's just like whatever deal they have or don't have with Netflix, but I would think that would, be something that they would want to figure out pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, and considering that paid online has been a thing since the PS3 and Xbox. No, since the Xbox, I think, and maybe even PS2. So it's that was what, 10, 12, 13 years ago?
A while ago.
And now Nintendo is like, hey, we heard it's finally time for you to start paying for online. So, you know, it's weird, but Nintendo's weird, but also great.
Speaking of Mario Kart, 5 minutes ago, when you mentioned Mario Kart,
they
also announced that we are going to get a Mario Kart for mobile called Mario Kart Tour, and that is pretty much all we know so far, but they did say that it's coming.
Yeah, they said it's coming by March, end of fiscal year in March 2019. So that's our window.
Ways to go.
Sometime by then we're going to get it.
Right.
So just in case you were like, man, I really want to play Mario Kart on the go, and also not currently in a way that I can do that in a fully functioning way on my Nintendo Switch. I wish I could just do it on my phone. Then yay. Now we finally get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of strange that they're gonna go Mario Kart on phones. Like if they're gonna continue to put games on mobile, because again, you can already play Mario Kart on the go multiple ways. So,
right. Yeah, I was gonna say you've also got the DS Mario Karts.
And so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think it could be cool.
And there's a chance that it might be. I'm wondering if there's a chance that it might be a toned down version, like how Super Mario Run was to the Mario games.
Yeah.
Like something a little more simplified. Who knows?
Yeah. And if that's the case, then I don't know exactly how excited I'm going to be about it. Again, especially because
if you've got Mario Kart 8, then what's
the Switch? Yeah, and just do it that way. But we'll see. Maybe I'm somebody that I enjoyed Super Mario Run. I don't think it's the greatest thing, but
I enjoyed it a lot. It was fun.
Yeah, and especially before Super Mario Odyssey came out, it was hey, this is a decent way to have a Mario experience, and especially once they updated it with that kind of, I can't remember what they call it anymore, but it's a mode that's 10 randomized levels, and you just play through those.
Yeah, a lot of replayability. I mean, even already in the base game, they had a bunch of optional coins you could collect that got harder and harder, and they've since added new characters, and it was fun to begin with.
Side plug for Super Mario Run, at this point, if you haven't played it at all, I think it's a decent investment.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think people were upset that it was $10, and I guess that compared to a lot of mobile games, that's expensive, but when you think about compared to, you wouldn't be upset to pay $60 for new Super Mario Bros. On Wii, right?
Yeah, right.
And this is a sixth of the price, and it's definitely not a sixth of the game. It's got a lot of content, and it's it can be just as fun to play. It looks great. The production value is high. So to me, it's for what you're getting, $10 is not really that much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, especially when you compare it to $60 for any other Mario type game. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And especially, now that, there's been Super Mario Run, there's been Fire Emblem Heroes, which I thought was kind of cool, but it it had some issues, I think, with the kind of some of the structure of it being free to play, and
Right.
that kind of held it back. And then this new Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, I've not heard wonderful things about. So like, maybe with this extra time, if they're going to really focus on this by itself and are giving themselves a longer window of time to develop it, that, it could be kind of like a really good, now that we've made a few of these and kind of like hit a few of these like stumbling blocks, now we like kind of really know what we want to do with this. So yeah, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about it, even though, and again, like, hey, if it's not great, guess what? You can just pull out Mario Kart 8 on the Switch and still play that anywhere you want.
That's right. And so Nintendo's, always, they have Nintendo Directs all the time, and they're always dropping little nugs of news. So yeah, it's exciting to hear stuff little by little.
Yeah, and this is a pretty interesting little block of news. But honestly, I mean, if you think about, like, since this year started, like in the month and change that 2018 has been a thing, like Nintendo has been on the forefront of the news cycle, like, constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I mean, it's whether it was that like mini direct that came out, a couple weeks ago that had all those game announcements, or even when they were releasing the numbers, like how the Switch has already surpassed the Wii U lifetime sales. Like they're staying in the limelight in a way that Sony and Microsoft are not doing at all. And so certainly I think riding the momentum of sales and understanding that, like, Nintendo is back in a big way, and they're just like, they're not resting on their heels, like resting on their laurels, resting on their heels. I don't know. They're not just sitting back on
both.
Yeah, at the same time, they're just they're keeping it up.
Didn't we also at some point this year hear that Detective Pikachu is coming to the U.S.?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So yeah.
So that's the biggest news of all,
Yeah, and having flashback PTSD to the fact that Ryan Reynolds is going to be the voice of that for the movie.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So I'm very happy that Nintendo is back, and that Nintendo is on the forefront of news for positive reasons. Right now at least.
Yeah.
The only form of Nintendo that we have not ingested yet is the Super Mario cereal. We are trying so hard to find it, and
we will eat it on air.
We will eat it on air. If anyone
can find it
out there knows where it is or could get it to us somehow, we would greatly appreciate it.
Address is
New Donk City. Yeah, no. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, we're pretty happy for Nintendo, and we'll keep updating you all on their news when we get it. Which at this point, I mean, it might be 2 weeks from now. So
that's true. It's kind of constant. Yeah. And speaking of 2018 getting off to a great start,
yes,
we've already been sinking our teeth into some games.
Yes, we have. We talked about. We did a little quick check-in. A quick check-in.
Yep. Quick old check-in.
Country Fried quick check-in last week, and so we're gonna do another little quick check-in, a little juicy check-in actually.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, both of us have been playing Monster Hunter World.
Yes.
Since we have last recorded a podcast. Yes.
And loving it. Well, I can speak for myself, but I am loving it.
Okay, yeah, well, so, yeah, go ahead and talk about your experience with it so far.
So Monster Hunter has always been one of those things that it's been around for a long time, and ever since it's been around, I've been like, this seems like my thing. That kind of fantasy and that kind of enemy design, I love that kind of thing, but it has always intimidated me, and I have, never really had the chance to jump into it, never seen a game that I was like, this is my time. And so when that game came around in Monster Hunter World, I was like, okay, I've got to jump in. I'm hearing a lot about how they're, working to make this more accessible. And just because it looks, ever since it was revealed at E3 last year, I was been like, okay, I want to keep my eye on this one. And to be honest, I had kind of a rocky start with the beta, and now that I've played it, I realize this is just a hard game to demo in general.
Yeah.
Because it's so deep. If any of you do not know about Monster Hunter, it is exactly what it sounds like. You hunt monsters, but it is a very difficult, deep systems game, highly customizable, stat heavy,
and the combat is very unique. It's kind of slow and deliberate moving. You've got this sword that's like 3 times as big as you are. And so what's really cool about this game to me is the loop. And what that essentially is you get a contract, you prep for a hunt, you go out on the hunt, and you are engaged in a really long fight with a monster. You take it down, you carve it, and I guess harvest. That doesn't.
Yeah.
It seems wrong to use that word.
Yeah.
But you wear it as a shirt that makes you stronger. And yeah, so once you kill it, you get its parts, and you craft new weapons and armor, and then you repeat basically. And it's that loop works so well to me.
Yeah, that is really the whole experience, and it's one of those where like either that's really going to do it for you or it's really not going to do it for you.
Right.
But yeah, that's really it. It is so satisfying to start off and experience this new open world that is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous and lush, and it's like walking into Jurassic Park, like
Right.
without the like terrible Jurassic World movie
Right, without actually walking into Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and it's because you see all this tropical landscapes and trees, and the lighting and shadow effects are really wonderful. And there's all these creatures, and a lot of them look like dinosaurs. That's kind of why,
Right. It's very. I love the style of it. It's so like. I remember in like a review or somewhere someone used the term cave punk as opposed to steampunk, because it's kind of like steampunk, but with like you're wearing bones.
Yeah, it's like
and
prehistoric almost.
Yeah, prehistoric swords and stuff, which is so unique, and it looks awesome.
That's a really great description for it. True. Yeah. And so it's like, you're walking through and you see these creatures that are really uniquely designed, and then you fight them, and the way that they animate when you fight them is I think one of the like more underrated aspects of the game.
It's my favorite thing about that. I didn't mention that before, but you're so right. Like their AI and their body language, not only how amazing it looks, but how that gives you the information that you need to fight. If it's telling you if it's drooling or limping, it's really hurt. Sometimes it'll get really angry, and you have to read its attacks. And all of that comes not in on-screen cues, not tutorials, but just in the animations and the movement.
Yeah, it really forces you to pay attention to, like, just as if you were actually in a fight with a monster. You would be paying attention to how it's moving and what it's favoring in order to know kind of how you're doing. It's not a game where there's a big old health bar at the top of the head that's floating in the air, and you just watch that go down. Like it's way more interesting, because like you could be fighting it for a while, and then it might run away, and you have to chase it down. Otherwise, it can rest and it can heal itself. Or, it'll run, and then once it's back in its nest where it's more comfortable, it'll be more aggressive to you because it kind of knows a little bit more where it is. So it's not, battles are never going to be the same, even if you fight the same monsters, because you never know what's going to happen. One new addition to this version of Monster Hunter is other monsters can come in and just like train wreck the fight.
Yep.
And that has been some of the best, coolest moments for me so far. I'll tell the story that I was fighting this bird-like creature that is kind of a weird bird dinosaur thing that can be really aggressive. And I was playing with a couple of my friends, and we eventually kind of chased it back to where it was more comfortable. But then we turned a corner, and then there is this giant, I'm talking like 3 times the size of what we were fighting, kind of like almost dragon, like pterodactyl hybrid thing. And I mean, it's like we were way, way below like level. We were not equipped to fight that. But what happened was that started fighting the monster we were hunting. And so like we just sat back and watched as like those two things fought it out. And like if that eventually just killed the thing we were trying to get.
Cool.
So like that was it. And then like I was fighting another like mud snake thing by myself, And that when that was running away, it ran into this giant stone rhinoceros dinosaur
Right.
thing, and they started fighting each other.
That
and like
same
the
thing
mud
happened to me
snake-
when I was fighting that one.
Yeah, and like it like coiled up and like kind of started constricting like a boa constrictor, and then like the other rhinoceros big old thing just like slung it down to the ground and did so much damage to it. And so like I was just watching that happen, and that kind of stuff is just, it's again because of the way that these monsters animate, like it is just so phenomenal to watch and to understand like, wow, no, I can take a rest and I can heal up and I can
Sharpen your
my
sword,
weapon. Yeah. And like, and while this thing is like getting pummeled, you know, but
Yeah.
like that doesn't always happen either. So like, it's not something you can bank on. It's just, this is a thing that can happen in the world. And so that's, it's so much fun when you're actually out there and like, and so like, okay, let's definitely talk about the fact though that like this is, and we kind of touched on this a little, other Monster Hunter games have been like inscrutable to like get into. Like when I played Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii U, I watched tutorial videos for like hours to understand like basic things of that game. And while a lot of this game is more streamlined now, like inventory management way more streamlined, combat even feels a little bit more streamlined. Like even the way that the world is divvied up, it's divvied up into zones. So like you can be in zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It used to be when you would go into a different zone, it would like cut to black and like you would mini load in. It wasn't seamless. And so like the fact that this is now a seamless world, you know, is a lot easier. And so like there's quality of life improvements across the board in a lot of different ways, but it's still, a lot of this is still really obtuse. And so like kind of like we're praising it for when you fight a monster, you have to pay attention to how it is behaving to kind of know how you're doing. But like also it can be really intimidating at first because you don't necessarily know that's what you're looking for.
Sure.
And how we talked about combat being more deliberate, it is a slower, well, most of the weapons are a little bit slower. You can have a
quicker weapon that does less damage.
Yeah, and that's a little bit easier to get into. And so like, but a lot of these weapons have combos that when you start them, you're locked into those animations. And so like you can be doing a combo and then the monster can move and you can't like adjust yourself to
you can't roll out of it.
Hitting it. Yeah. And so like that can be, it takes some getting used to. And also the fact that there's like 13 or 14 weapons at the very beginning and like there's not a great tutorial, like in-game tutorial for each of those. Like there's a little video that kind of shows you like a mini overview of what those weapons do, but it's not, and like they have star ratings for like difficulties for like, hey, this is better for beginners.
And you can take one to the practice area and like fiddle around with it.
But like that's like what you kind of have to do, like if you've never played these, so like to even know what they feel like, and like, or even to know, like, you know, you could play with a weapon for, like I've heard some people that like have used, there's the dual blades which are faster but they do way less damage, and people have been like, man, I don't understand why this game is so fun because I'm basically just running up and tapping triangle or tapping Y with these dual blades for 45 minutes and then like it just goes away. And like while that could be the experience, like you could also, you know, use, like I use the switch axe, which is a giant axe that literally once you hit it enough times and fill up like an energy meter, switches into an even bigger sword that also does elemental damage. And so like that can like really wreck some monsters in some really satisfying ways. And so, you know, that's, if you don't necessarily know that, or if you're like you're stuck with a weapon you don't love, then it can be like, well, I've already sunk a lot of time into this game and I'm not enjoying it. And so like there's a lot of potential barriers to not necessarily getting into it. And then also like multiplayer isn't the easiest to understand. Like it feels like you have to confusing. Like jump into 4 hoops to do basic stuff. Which like isn't the biggest deal. I mean, like you kind of understand this is what it's asking you to do, and
you have to learn
it. It's just a little confusing initially.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the weapon system too is that when we say 14 weapons, we mean 14 weapon classes.
Yeah.
And when I say 14 weapon classes, I mean it's like playing 14 different games. I mean, this is not like it's not like a heavy sword, light sword, dagger. It's like a bow gun, or like a staff that you can flip on, or an axe, or like all sorts of different stuff. They all work completely differently, all have their own individual upgrade trees, and they all just feel totally different.
Totally different.
Which can be, like you said, it can be intimidating, but it's also really cool to try a bunch of things out and find a play style that is really unique to you and that you like really feels good. And especially when you are playing multiplayer and you're combining people using different weapons who are, providing different services to that team. If one person is long range and one person is going in up close, that kind of thing can be really cool.
Yeah, you can really have some good synergy and make battles really satisfying because you feel like we came together as a team to do this. And like if one of us wasn't here and one of us wasn't using the weapons we were using, we wouldn't have been able to succeed. And like that is a really cool thing, as opposed to a lot of other multiplayer games where, say, like you're playing Destiny or something like that, where somebody might be having a sniper rifle, somebody might have an automatic and a shotgun. You're still just all like throwing energy or bullets into this thing until it goes away.
Right.
Like it's not like, one person has a bow and they're hanging back and they're shooting long distance. And then one person has a giant hammer and they're running up off of walls and then doing like 4 backflips and spinning and hitting this monster in the head to stun it, and then somebody comes up with, again, like a dual blaze or a switch axe, and like once the monster is on its side, just absolutely goes in and wrecks with some combos. Like everything works together in a really satisfying way, like we were saying.
And I mean, we're pretty early in the game, and so as we progress farther, like the higher level monsters, you're not going to be able to beat unless you craft a certain type of armor and a certain kind of weapon that is specific to that monster's weaknesses. And
that's very true.
Elemental stuff, and it can get pretty deep that way as well.
Yeah, certain monsters might be more weak to water, and so you might have to use a water weapon, even if it's like lower in level, like it does less base damage, but because it does water damage, it's going to be better. Yeah, and so you really have to start using more strategy in what your equipment is as you get further in the game. Again, from what we understand, we are both pretty early in the game.
But that elemental stuff, like that just touches on my favorite thing about the design of this game, and a word that they kept using when they were showing off this game, which was ecosystem. How not only is there a food chain of monsters, which is very evident, but like each world feels different and the plants are different. And, I remember we'd be like walking through and the scientists would be like, these plants have hard shells to retain their moisture. And like the monsters also feel specific to where you are, like that mud snake or rhinoceros, whatever. And I still feel like we've only barely scratched the surface of the worlds and the monsters in this game. But I love how it feels like you're in a functioning ecosystem that works in a way that makes sense and that affects the gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I agree with all of that, and that's a cool feeling, and kind of what I mean. Like, this is really the distillation of, I think, what this series has always wanted to be, and I think that this has completely knocked it out of the park so far. Yep. Even though there is still some of these like weird, nonsensical decisions in some of the design. Yeah. It's still, for the most part, this like absolute vision of like, hey, this is like what this Monster Hunter thing is supposed to be about. It is supposed to be about exploring and seeing this new world and discovering new creatures and then fighting those creatures in really cool combat, and then capturing or killing them and taking them back and using them to craft new weapons and armor. Shirts. That like look really cool as well. Because a lot of these like loot-based games are definitely fashion. You want to look cool. Right. You don't want to just be functional. You want to also look amazing. And then going back and doing that again to get better stuff. It's such a satisfying gameplay loop. That's done really well, and it is fun. I mean, I've played it a good bit by myself, and I've played it with other people, and it's fun either way. Some games are like, well, you definitely only want to play this with other people, or like, playing with other people kind of break the game in a weird way. And this is pretty equally good by yourself or with people, and I think that's also something that's hard to achieve for a lot of games. So
Yep.
Also, we haven't even mentioned the fact that you have a little companion called a palico, which is just a cat. It's a cat that wears armor and weapons and runs around and heals you, and it
uses cat puns.
Yeah,
it calls you Meowster.
Yeah, it's so good. And
what'd you name yours, Daniel?
Oh, Odie. 100% Odie. Just like my actual cat, Odie. Yeah. So
yeah, I went with Sir Pounce a lot.
That is really good.
Yeah,
That's
it was between that and Mr. Buttons.
Oh, both great choices.
Yep, maybe my second playthrough. But yeah, I'm gonna sink a lot of hours into this game.
Yeah, it's a real force to be reckoned with. That came out in January. Capcom. Just like last January, Resident Evil 7 was my game of the year, and now this January, Monster Hunter World. That again, both of us are just barely scratched the surface of, but we've got lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of gameplay hours left to go. And I'm assuming that they're going to continue to support this with I think they're going to continue to do free DLC, like adding more monsters and adding more loot combinations, or maybe even more weapons. I don't know, but they're not done with this game yet either, which is really exciting.
Yeah, can't wait to get more into it.
Yeah.
As far as what else has come out this year that I'm glad I've finally gotten to start playing, which is Celeste.
Yeah.
Now, this is a game that's gotten a whole lot of talk over the past month that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm going to reference two things. One, IGN gave it a 10.
Yep.
And then Tim Geddes from Kind of Funny said, this is my game of the year. And I think made some kind of reference to the fact that it's going to take something really crazy to top that.
Yeah. So I don't know if I should talk about the game first or reference that specifically. It's because, that's saying a lot for him to say that because, this year, as we talked about on the last episode, we've got a lot of games coming out that are pretty awesome looking. So in case, again, if any of our listeners don't know what Celeste is an indie game. It is a 2D platformer about climbing a mountain. I don't want to go too much into the premise, obviously. First of all, it's fantastic. I beat it yesterday or the day before. It was about, I don't know, I want to say 7-ish hours.
Okay.
I have had it on my Switch, so I've been playing it at home and then, picking it up on my break at work every once in a while. It's a really, really, really excellent game. What is so fascinating about Celeste is that I can't really judge or analyze it in the way that I do most video games, not only because it's an indie game, but when I finished it, I found myself thinking about what number score I would give it or trying to somehow quantify how good it was.
Mm-hmm.
And especially having just finished a pretty emotional story that it is, I kind of came up short on that front. And you can think of it that way if you're just thinking about how well the game mechanics work, which they work very well. And it's extremely creative game. But I'll get to gameplay in a second. But when it comes to the experience of the game, it becomes much more than a traditional spectrum of good or bad. I would almost compare it to something like Journey. Or I haven't played it. I mean, what I mean when I say that is that Journey, you can't really lump it in with most games because it's more like an interactive piece of art,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And that is how I kind of view this game, because the reason I say that is because I believe everyone who plays Celeste will experience it differently. It's a very personal, emotional story that deals particularly with mental illness and depression and anxiety. And this game will mean something very different to someone who struggles with mental illness than it did to me, for example. And I think any given person who plays this will relate to a different character in the story. There's fantastic characters, and it may not necessarily be the protagonist. Like in my case, there was other characters that I wouldn't expect to be relating to, but that really struck me in that game. And it's, it's very hard to describe how I feel about the game if you haven't played it. But the bottom line is that if someone played it, the important question wouldn't be, was it good, or what score would you give it necessarily? It would be like, how did this make you feel? What character did you relate to? And not a lot of games have done that for me the way Celeste did.
Wow.
Yeah, and so gameplay wise, it's a pretty simple concept executed very well and very creatively. It's a lot of jumping and dashing kind of thing. You can jump and you can grab onto walls and climb up them, and then you get one mid-air dash, and later you upgrade some of your powers. I guess the only reason, I know I just talked about why I wouldn't give it a score, but the only reason I don't know if I would give it a 10 or say it's game of the year is because it is an indie game. It's a pretty simple concept. And so when you put it up against something like, a new God of War or a new Red Dead, it's hard to compare those two.
Yeah, definitely.
But for what I would say is, for what it was a 10 for sure. For an indie game and for an indie platformer, it didn't do any of it wrong. It did what it did excellently. And it is brutally difficult. I don't know if I mentioned that before. But also very difficult to put down. It's not a frustrating kind of difficult. It's just the kind of difficult that, what makes it easy to keep playing is that it's super quick in terms of your respawn. You're dying. At the end of the game, it gave my account, I died over 1,000 times.
Wow, that's wow.
Yeah, it's like Cuphead level.
Wow.
But as soon as you die, you immediately respawn, and your thumbs don't stop moving pretty much. And some of them, it's crazy because what's cool about the platforming is that at parts it can kind of become a puzzle game of where you have to figure out what maneuvers you need to do to get from point A to point B. And so sometimes you'll start a level and you'll think, sometimes you'll have a eureka moment of, I need to double jump off this wall, whatever. But sometimes what it will do is it will start you off either in midair or on a disappearing platform. And so if you don't act immediately, you'll die. And so you'll try it, and then you'll die, and then you'll immediately spawn in midair. And so you don't get time to figure things out, and it's very quick that way as well. But the worlds are gorgeous, and what's the parts that are super difficult are you'll have to jump and dash in specific directions in a I don't know if a tunnel is the right word, but in a space that is literally the size of your body. So in a way that if you get any wrong movements, you're going to hit something and die. So it's just very, what were you going to say?
Asking for a lot of precision.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a super precise, it requires a lot of precision for sure. But yeah, the story, obviously I don't want to talk about too much of it. What really struck me about the writing is that it dealt with issues in a very, the writing was very conversational, which I really liked. I kind of felt like I was having normal conversations with these characters. It wasn't in a video game or a movie kind of way. It was in a teenager having a conversation kind of way. There's one point where you're sitting at a campfire with another character, and for 10 minutes, you're just controlling both sides of a conversation, just picking from a bunch of prompts. And it's just written so organically and honestly, and that those sections were some of the most compelling sections of the game for me.
Wow.
Anyways, I could talk about this for a million hours. I really, really loved it. I highly recommend anyone play it. It's a really unique game. Go play it.
So I really appreciate you talking through this. I've been excited to kind of hear your thoughts on it because I've seen the IGN 10. I've seen Tim Geddes say this is my game of the year, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it in really positive terms, and I've heard some people on podcasts talk about it not as much I feel like as some other games, especially considering Monster Hunter World, and then another game that neither of us have played that is also pretty popular right now, Dragon Ball Fighters. Fighters is out, and so that's I feel like has dominated a lot of the conversation. But there's still this Celeste game that I've heard is amazing, and honestly for me, I'm never the biggest fan of 8-bit graphics,
the retro style.
Yeah, I think my line is drawn at SNES, like 16-bit.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of where my preference is. Like I love like a good 16-bit, but like when it's a little bit less detailed, I'm kind of get lost. And so I'll be honest and say that like that was kind of my initial block with Celeste, is that like, oh, well, I mean, this isn't my favorite thing to look at.
Sure.
But like hearing you talk about it in a way, well, when you compare it to Journey is like a top 5 game for me. And like,
for sure.
Especially for kind of what it is, and kind of like you were saying, how it's not just a video game that you're doing. It's much more of you're experiencing this thing on a lot more levels than just how can I get to the end and quote unquote beat it. And so that's not something that I've necessarily heard this game referenced in that way to this point. I've heard that it's a really challenging platformer, and I've heard that it has really tight feeling controls and
great music.
You know, it's a really great soundtrack and all of that. But to hear that there's an extra level of it that is more than just that style of game, you know, of indie platformer with really challenging difficulty, great soundtrack, and tight controls, like makes me way more interested in it.
Yeah. And I mean, my advice would be don't go in, like, I kind of wish the parts that to me that I wasn't like super in love with, I think were a lot because I was like, oh, this is a 10 out of 10 game of the year. Like my advice would be don't go in expecting a 10 out of 10 game of the year. And I mean, you know, again, don't even like when I compared it to Journey, you know, I think Journey is like, that was the game of the year at whatever that year was. And, you know, I make that comparison to say, you know, it's on a different scale. I would kind of like another good comparison would be like a Shovel Knight / Meat Boy kind of thing, but with more of an emotional investment. Yeah.
Again, like I feel like people aren't necessarily talking about Celeste on that kind of level as much as they're talking about it for its mechanics and its gameplay. Right. So yeah, that kind of stuff attracts me to a game more in general anyway. Like if there's like a really compelling story and really compelling characters and writing. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to play this yet, but like, I think I was just pretty content to say like, oh yeah, that's a thing that I think a lot of people liked, and I think people will talk about it highly, but like, I'll just kind of let that be. And like, I think now I'm much more interested in actually playing it at some point. Yeah. So,
and again, I think it will, people will experience it differently. I certainly didn't experience it to the level that, you know, Tim Geddes or whoever was giving it 10s was. I just, it's going to mean different things to different people. And I think that's cool to, you know, it piques my curiosity of like what you would think of a game like this, or what a lot of people I know would think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially considering, to me, I just thought, all right, this is another Super Meat Boy type thing. But now it's like, okay, maybe it's more than that. And to kind of go into it with a little bit more open mind. Yep. It's something that I think is really compelling.
For sure.
You know, hey, it's February. It's early February. And here we are talking about two really, really great game experiences. I think that I think 2018 is going to be all right for video games.
Yeah, not bad. We're just trying to keep up.
Right. Yeah. Man. Well, I think this will do it for us this week. You know, as always, as we are continuing to make this podcast, I want to shout out to those of you who have written reviews for us on iTunes or given us 5 stars. That really does help us immensely with visibility, because, you know, while we enjoy just talking to each other about video games anyway, we really love to have a lot of people to engage with as well. Like, you know, we'd love to talk to you all on social media, and we want to be able to incorporate more of maybe your ideas or your conversations in what we have on the show, and like maybe like kind of co-collaborate and co-create with you all. So we do really,
if you are going about your day and all of a sudden you think of an unsolved mystery, please let us know. Anytime we have a segment like that, we will do them again. If y'all can, you know, let us know what you've always wondered about people's body parts in video games.
Yeah, or if you have a really funny idea for, changing a letter in a game title to create a game, or if you're like, hey, wouldn't this be hilarious if these two video game characters went on a date?
Yep.
Like we want to know, what you think, and we'll talk about them on the show and
Heck yeah.
have a lot of fun with that. But again, we do really appreciate those of you who have already followed us on Twitter at Hubworldcast, or who already like us on our Facebook page at Hubworld, or have shared our podcast already. If you haven't already, retweet us or share our page and tell somebody about our podcast. Even if they're video game fan adjacent.
Right.
So,
That's a good, very diplomatic way to put it.
yeah, like we would love it for you all to share us with them. But yeah, so that stuff really helps us out. We really appreciate all of you so far who have been following along with us in our podcast infancy.
Yes, that's right. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for sticking with us for all this new game talk, and we will have much, much more to come as the year goes along. Much more
That's right.
new funny segments, new games to talk about. But until then, remember, it's dangerous to go alone.
Take us!